Okay, so we did get a couple questions coming in. So we'll start. It's Thursday, November 12th, and this is office hours for wayside cleanup. All the ground rules are on the screen in back of me. We are recording, et cetera, et cetera. So we got a couple of questions in. One was from Wendy Rendell in the LSPA, and we're not going to answer that, as she well knew when she sent it at 4:30 on a holiday the night before, and didn't CC Liz Callahan, keeper of all things regulatory. So I forwarded that to Liz this morning.
Sorry, Liz.
No, but Wendy, knowing really what was going to go down, said perhaps this can be an agenda item for next week's meeting, which, giving us time to prepare. But basically an update on some of the specific items in the draft regs that were out and that Liz is preparing. And to be perfectly honest, a large chunk of them is on my desk at the moment to take a look at and move them ahead. So we might be able to talk in more detail about those next week.
That's great, thanks.
At least more specifically defer the conversation to later, item by item.
Yeah, it was just, it was something that came up at a tech practices meeting yesterday. And we realized, like, oh my goodness, it's been almost a year. And we all feel like we lost 6 months, and we're just kind of becoming conscious again. And the question came up about, oh, has that last report from March actually stayed the same, or are there changes? So thanks.
Yep. So do that. And then the other question that came in came from Matt Hackman, who noted that EDR, which acquired First Search, is now offering a report with the Massachusetts PFAS database report for sites in Massachusetts. So the questions are, where are they getting this data? And is DEP making data available for water suppliers and private well survey for PFAS? Okay, so, and there are more questions that stem from all of that, but we'll start by sharing the screen. And this is where you guys should all go to lose a couple hours of your time when you need distractions that you can reasonably attribute to work. And this is EA's data portal, which, by and large is DEP's data portal, but, it's EEA's. They did all the programming to make that happen. We provide a lot of the data, although there's probably some other there will in the future be non-DEP stuff here. The one you're most familiar with is, you'll remember when our searchable sites list was moved to the data portal. For some of us, and really that includes me, it meant that the colors changed and the format changed, but nothing, it didn't change the way it worked. And I went on living my life without thinking too much about the rest of the data portal. But there are a bunch of cool things here, and including dashboards that kind of allow you to see and cut the data in different ways that are really cool. But the screen I just had up, there we go. Environmental data sets are kind of interesting to look at, the wayside cleanup stuff, but where they're probably pulling the information is from this database, the drinking water. And much like the wayside cleanup searchable sites list, you could, in fact, let's see, per fluoro, you could look for PFAS, including PFAS 6. That's a new one. I hadn't seen that. They modified that recently. And you could, quickly look for PFAS 6. Let's limit this to things since October 1st. And let's look at finished water rather than the raw water, so post-treatment. And let's look at community wells, big ones. And let's see if that narrows down the search at all. Come on. So this is where, well, it's cranking. This is probably where they're getting it from. And it's not limited to PFAS. Oh, I limited it too much. Let's just take the date away. You could do this because, so a lot of this data is available, or this format process is available because EPA requires us to send public water supply sampling results up to EPA electronically. So a lot of work has gone over the years, across the country to set up systems where the states can feed EPA the data. And then going back from there, the labs need to feed us, the labs and the water suppliers need to feed us the data in a way that can then be passed along to EPA. So at some point in the process, when we were setting up these data portals, it became clear that, well, if we're taking it in and we're storing in our databases and we're giving it to EPA, we can also make it available to the public. So you're seeing that here, and you can do it for arsenic, you can do it for tetrachloroethylene, you can do it for PFAS 6, and PFAS 6 being a relatively new thing, they just inserted that probably since the MCL. Well, no, more recent, a little bit beyond that, older than that. But you can see how, if you were to look for all of the PFAS compounds, you could easily export it to Excel. I don't know if the drinking water program is actually making the database itself available somewhere else on the site, like we make available a downloadable version of our searchable sites list. But at the very least, this is probably where they're one path to get this data, and you can do the same thing too. And that's for the public water supply sampling. It includes the community wells, the non-community wells, and the non-transient non-community wells. So the one thing that is missing from this would be the transient. No, I guess, I don't know. Would transient non-community be in the NC as well? I don't know. Drinking water program. I don't know that level of detail, but you can get that. The private wells would be my point, is not in here yet. Not in here. There will be, as we ramp up the private well sampling program that is being funded through the supplemental budget appropriation from last year, the results will be made available to the public in a way that is appropriately obscured on the actual addresses, to have some privacy for the people who are volunteering their private wells to have sampled through this. But the results will be made available in a way that will be useful for us and for researchers looking at the distribution of PFAS across the state for the private wells in addition to this. So there will be more of this coming. I think the plans are to have it GIS story maps, a term people keep throwing at me that I haven't quite wrapped my head around yet, but have the information presented in GIS as well. So does that answer your question, Matt?
Yes, thank you very much. I was not aware of all the stuff you could get out of EEA data sets.
Yeah, and we're looking to add more as we kind of get our data in order, get the data sets up there. You notice in this kind of, Matt and I were talking before the rest of you joined on about New York's online stuff. So Matt, do you want to describe that?
Well, New York just requires all our environmental data to be submitted in EDD, electronic data deliverable, using the EQUIS, whatever, databases. And so in addition to reporting all your environmental data, you're also providing a GPS, a GIS, whatever, location of your wells. So the idea was that all this data would go up, and then you'd be able to look at all this GIS data. Like you could search your site, around your site, you could see what other people were getting in their wells on their sites and stuff. But I just haven't been able to figure out how to find that on New York DEC's site. But anyway.
Or it may be in the process
idea.
of doing it. Yeah. And to bring it kind of back around to Wendy's question, which is, what is the status of a bunch of things that we had put out for public comment? One of the things was kind of beginning to require the lat long for well installation, so that that we begin to have the locations, so that we can begin kind of moving towards what you're describing, Matt, which eventually we're going to get there. It's a question of how quickly we can kind of move the data systems and move the kind of operating practices. So it's great to hear that New York is requiring the data delivered in that way, because
I think they've been doing it since 2010, but not UTM, lat long.
Oh, don't. I'm just going to say it's all the same to me, as long as we can put it on a map. I follow what our IT and GIS and geography specialists tell us, and we have a lot of geography majors at MassDEP, by the way.
Soil sampling as well.
On what to require. So I would point out that among the data sets, we have a well drilling data set. That's here, and I did look to see if they have the lat long on this, and they don't. So if you look at Acton and just search, so here are all. I'm not going to say that there are only 618 wells in Acton, but there is a bunch of data, including the monitoring wells that people put in that they're supposed to notify about, and what is not made available here. And I don't know if it exists. So I'm not saying one way or another. The only thing I know is that it does not have a lat long here, and there isn't a show on map button on this. But eventually, I mean, and maybe Liz can chime in more detail, because my memory is fading. I think what we had proposed in the MCP regs, we were in fact trying to be consistent with what the well was required in the well driller regs. So while I can't speak to the details of it because I just haven't looked at it for a little while, the kind of consistency issue certainly was something that we wanted to make sure that what we are collecting and what we have is consistent with what's being required by the well drilling program. And eventually, this would be great to have the same thing in a big red button that says, view map, and you could see that, and then have the ability to kind of pull some of that data to actually have sampling data and be able to look. So if a lot of the conversations I have, I think I talked about this, one of these calls, a lot of the phone calls I get when I go into the office that are on my office phone voicemail are forwarded from the front desk. And a lot of them are people who are interested in buying property and know that it's have been told it's a 21E site and have no idea what it means and what they should be aware of. And, for people that are, buying homes with private wells, if I were going to buy a home with private well, I would certainly look to see what's in the groundwater, in the surrounding area. That would be an interesting piece of information to have. And right now, you'd have to go to our searchable site list, maybe map it, find out all the sites that are in the area, and then go through them, click on them one by one, pull up maybe the phase 2 report or the permanent solution statement, get an overall summary about what they've looked at, whether or not they looked at groundwater, what's in the groundwater, and kind of map it out that way. And you can do it, but there are a lot of steps and you really have to be concerned about it and have the time to do it. So eventually it would be cool to be able to go to the well drilling data set, look around in the map, click on a button, and then have links to the sites or have actual data come up, be available for it. But sometime in the future. But check out all the rest of those.
Well, I have a memory that at some point in the past, you could actually search the wayside cleanup database by contaminant, which I don't see you can do anymore. Is that, am I misremembering that?
Could you, it's possible that you could, but it's also, it also was almost worthless. Because that day, and which is probably why, if it was available before, and I don't remember, again, I'm turning old tomorrow, so I have an excuse. I get to go to Target at like 7 o'clock in the morning to shop tomorrow.
Good way to celebrate your birthday, Paul.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to take advantage of the old people hours.
Happy birthday, Paul. Mine was Monday.
Happy birthday. The data, the chemical names that are in there are really what you guys have put in, and not that, or that our staff, like our ER staff and people have put in. And it was, it's not comprehensive at all. It's often for any particular site, what triggered notification. So people might put in a couple things, but it's rarely updated enough so that if you wanted to go in and look for something, to find like all PFAS sites, you couldn't do it. It wouldn't be an appropriate way to do it. So there are ways. I have a YouTube video about searching using Google. And one of the things that we cover there is using Google to search our 21E reports by chemical name. But again, it's, you have to really, it can't be just chemical. You have to narrow down the search using a bunch of different, search terms that hopefully will narrow things for you before you can get there. Because if you do it just by chemical name, you're going to end up with, all of those reports where somebody sampled for methyl ethyl ketone, but didn't find it. But the fact that they sampled for it means it's going to be in the report.
Right.
So at some point we can figure out a way to, when we get stuff coming in electronically, the sampling results electronically, then we, in Matthew's future, his vision there, which is also our vision, you'd be able to search for PFAS greater than 20 parts per trillion in da areas, so that you don't just get all of the non-detects and thus everything.
Thanks.
So if we had it before, it was probably removed because it would have been misleading, really, because you could search for things, and if you didn't find, the site next door didn't have tetrachloroethylene listed, we wouldn't want people to think that, oh, it's not there. It's just when it really might be, nobody bothered to put it in the database in that field. It would have turned up a lot of false negatives. So you can play with those data portals, and make it look like you're doing work related stuff. And there's a lot of information and weird. Yes, Marilyn?
Do you know how frequently that gets updated? Like, I mean, I noticed some of those results were from September. Is that something like they would go in and update on a regular basis? Do you know? On
the drinking water side, the public water supplies, I believe that though they are filed electronically, I think there may be a QA/QC step in it, but it gets put up pretty quickly, I think. I think there was a lag for PFAS, specifically for PFAS stuff during the summer because they were updating the database, the whole database and the viewer to accommodate it. So they had the IT folks working on it, and I think a lot of things didn't get entered for a while. But it looks like, based on just that search, that more recent things are now going in. So I think it's fairly quick. It's not our, the wayside cleanup uploaded document. It's available in 15 minutes sort of thing, but it's pretty recent. And if you are eventually when they get the GIS storyboard book, whatever it's called, going, there will be a link to that on we'll go back, the PFAS page, which you should have a handy PFAS link on your bookmark bar, and everything PFAS should be here. And if it's not here, laboratory testing and sample collection, detect PFAS, detect in public. Oh, there it is. It actually is up. Oh, you should check this out. Testing. PFAS detections and responses in public water supplies. That's a pretty, I think that's an older map, but maybe not.
Hey, they link to the portal right there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, there we go. So see, I had seen a draft version of this recently. I didn't realize that it was already up. Great. So check that out. So it will be there, and I'm sure that it has information about kind of how, somewhere on there's probably information about how often that PFAS public water supply sampling stuff is updated and what the process is. But I'm pretty sure we get it from we get most of the stuff electronically, but there is a QA/QC step. Particularly, I've been learning a lot about this, because of PFAS, and because for public water supplies, there are confirmatory samples that must be taken. A single sample does not mean that you've failed the MCL, that you exceeded the MCL, and we want to first go through the confirmatory sample stage. So I think it won't be uploaded, the information won't be uploaded until in fact it's confirmed, and then it goes from there. So there's we want to make, because of the consequences of finding really any chemical above a standard in a public water supply is significant, beginning with notification, public notice to all the consumers, and then what is potentially millions of dollars in planning and implementation of remedies, treatment. You want to make sure that it's actually there before, and at the levels that you're concerned about before you start requiring action to be taken. So I think, Marilyn, to your point, I think that delay probably needs to be taken into account for confirmatory sampling.
Makes sense. Thanks, Paul.
So those are the questions we got in beforehand. Any on the fly questions?
Hey, Paul, it's Dianne. Just seeing the data portal reminded me, and I'm not sure you'll be able to answer this, but with respect to the enforcements that are listed, which of course is something many of us are often interested in, there doesn't appear to be any way to really sort of search. The only good search techniques are by the name of the party, which is fine if you're doing sort of due diligence on the party, but like you can't search for all asbestos enforcements or all solid waste enforcements, and it looks like DEP's not doing their. For years and years, there used to be an enforcement page with a little summary, a narrative summary about administrative consents and that sort of thing, that said what happened, and that's not being carried forward anymore, and now it's just a refer to the enforcement data portal. Do you have any insight as to, I'm sure I know why it's simpler, but or any enhancements that might be available for that?
Well, the short answer
You can
is,
just say no. It's
Well,
kind
the
of
short
outside
answer
of
is-
your bailiwick, but I was just sort of curious, and seeing you put that back up there reminded me about that.
yeah, and there's the enforcement, the search for enforcements. Yeah, so my hesitation was kind of your comment that, if you can see why we would do it this way because it's easier. And I think that's only part of it. I mean, I don't think I had realized that we're no longer giving that summary of enforcement actions.
Yeah, if you go to your website, it's like April 2019. It says, look at the EEA portal or something like that is my memory. I haven't looked at it in a little bit, but.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at it now.
Yeah.
Permitting it. Where is our? Yeah, we got the press releases. Featured topics. Their enforcement, environmental justice. So rather than like have you guys watch me scroll around with a confused look on my face,
I think if you just Google search MassDEP enforcement, it'll pull you to the page. It is kind of buried somewhere, was my memory.
Yeah, so I would guess first that it was less a that particularly since it might not have been updated since April, that it may in fact be a COVID figure out how to do it thing.
I thought it was April 2019, actually.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I take that back. Because, and I would find it curious, because the benefit of those stories, those summaries, is that it provides more detail on kind of what happened and why.
Yep.
And a lot of enforcement, we do enforcement for a number of reasons, and we talk about enforcement for a number of reasons. One, of course, is the educational aspect of it, to let people know that yes, we're doing this, and here are the things that we're finding, and to the extent that it's also kind of embarrassing to people that are caught are doing something inappropriate, that helps too, because nobody wants to do anything inappropriate or wrong, and certainly nobody likes it being caught and kind of talked about in public, et cetera. So I think there's a value added to that, but yeah, it certainly is easier having it coming out of a database, and having it be there automatically. As to whether in the future we'll be able to search by those things, the answer is probably yes. Again, these data portal things are all works in progress. And one of the things I have been impressed about with our EEA IT staff that are working on this is that, and I would add our DEP staff working on this, particularly Victoria Phillips and Chris, Liz, Chris
Borges.
Well, no, Chris Borges is ours,
Oh,
and
okay.
also good, but works for Victoria on the, is it even Chris? Tall, thin, runner. I know him.
Chris Voss.
No, I've run in races with him.
Chris Tanyan.
Tanyan, thank you.
Happy birthday, Paul. How old now?
60, senility comes early. And I'm not even there yet. I still have a few more hours. Chris Tanyan is working on all this stuff. And they have adopted, and the approach of, get something out there and then improve upon it, tweak it, rather than wait until it's perfect. So, what you're seeing there is really a lot of, and what has been there has been a lot of the low hanging fruit. What do we already have available that we can put there? And then, create demand, get people asking for other things, and then, what has to go on behind the scenes is if people are asking other things, we either have to start collecting it if we're not already, or if we are collecting it, but it's in a different format or in a different data system that doesn't talk to these data systems, then you have to work on that to get it there. So, or, find different ways of doing searches that might be coming available. So yeah, I would, I would say that it's a work in progress. Those might, and if you have something that you particularly want to do or think would be useful, send an email to, at all of these pages, there should be a, an email thing at the bottom with send feedback. This box right here. Did you find what you were looking for on this page? Yes, no, send feedback. People actually read those. And I know for a fact people read those because I get sent a lot of those where it looks like it might be 21E related. I get those questions, and some of the staff from Wayside Cleanup know that because I often will then forward it to them to actually be answered. But they get, all of them get looked at, all of them get replied to. They're actually pretty good at that. And that's with a person who manages that includes Kelly Ingram in the commissioner's office, who works for Victoria, and people in the programs like Tom Higgins and Julianne Torre in BAW and BWR, respectively, the air and waste people and the water people. And they farm the questions out to appropriate staff. So yeah, if you're looking, you think, hey, it would be great if we could separate all of the asbestos enforcements and search by that. Send the email. You'll get a response.
I just note
Thank
that
you.
I to Diane's point, I checked Waltham, and if you just look for enforcements in the town of Waltham, you find that they're all listed from 1996 and 1997. Apparently nothing since. So
they've been really good in Waltham since then. Again, it may be low hanging fruit. It may also be a database quirk. And again, if you see something weird like that, at the bottom of the page where it says, did you find what you were looking for? Say no. The data only seems to be from 1996 to 1997 in Waltham. What's up with that? And because it might, with a lot of this stuff, particularly where you have IT folks that might be maintaining it that don't know how the programs work, and there's no reason that they should. And staff who might not look at this because they may have access to kind of more extensive databases on their desktop. So they may not actually check to see what the public is looking at, that you may get those disconnects where something goes wrong and nobody catches it for a while because the right people weren't actually looking at it.
most likely I just don't know how to search it right. But anyway, it may be chronological if I'm only looking at the first page. Thank you.
Yeah, but also, keep, feel free to answer that question, because the feedback is useful. And, even if we respond, saying that, oh, that's a stupid question. Yeah, we won't do that.
Yeah. Well, it is, this has been helpful. And I do think I agree with you. The little stories, certainly I thought were valuable to convince clients about why compliance was important and that sort of thing. But
yeah. So
yeah.
I'll look into it, and I'll ask our, our enforcement people, particularly, because it was also, I'm not sure who actually put those up. It might've been like our press people as well. So find out, I'll find out, because yeah, it always is. And you know, to the extent that we do, you know, in wayside cleanup have done enforcement, you know, we always like seeing our enforcement cases make the cut. You know, to show that, you know, yeah, we're out there, we're doing this work. And I noticed I was going to ask Gerard about that, but Gerard's gone. So because obviously a lot of those enforcement cases come out of the regional staff, the regional work. You know, Liz and I and Ken and Diane, I'm looking, Nancy, Rob, you know, we don't do a lot of enforcement directly. We help, but it all comes out of the regional staff. Okay, and any other questions? Okay, it would be curious. Another thing, as long as we're talking about the data portal, as I said, there's a YouTube video about how to use Google to search our site documents, and that happens because all of the PDFs and all of those site documents are up in the cloud, and Google has access to go through them and index them and all of that. So you basically can use them to do these searches through the documents. And I haven't looked to see whether you could do similar things to some of those other database repositories that might be available on the EEA Data Portal. So you might be able to use Google's search to actually do different kinds of searches beyond what we offer. I think the ability to do that may depend upon whether the information that's up there is in a database. You know, we have our database up there, but it links to documents, and what Google does is actually search the documents. So it depends upon what's up and available and how you might be able to otherwise look at it. But that's something you might consider too. We're all about transparency. So any other questions, observations? How's work going? Meetings, anything? Everybody's good? Okay. When's the next LSPA meeting?
The next LSPA meeting is next Wednesday, November 18th at 4:30, and it features John Ziegler from the Western region talking about the auditing process, the checklists, and common mistakes. So thanks for prompting me to put in the plug. It offers 1 DP credit, and we're looking forward to it. I just saw his slides the other day, and I know that they've been he and I think Liz and Nancy Fitzpatrick have been working on it for a while, so we're excited to have John. Anything else from the LSPA? Let me just look.
I assume you sat in on the board. I assume you sat in on the board meeting.
Yes.
What was that, Tuesday?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. How did that go? Speaking of Chris Borges, who does like the behind the scenes stuff.
Right. I think that's why his name came to mind immediately. It was relatively uneventful. I'm trying to think. The LSP exam is going to be offered in the Worcester office here December 9th. There are 10, I think maybe 11 if the person there was one anyway, I think there are 10 people who are eligible to take the exam, and have been working on all these protocols with EEA and DPH to make sure that it's that the test taking room and the protocols are all in place for temperature taking and all that kind of stuff. It was very interesting to hear that. Trying to think what else. I think that's it. Sort of the key parts that we might be interested in. I know they're also starting to interview for general counsel, so that's something the LSPA has been eager to see happen.
Yeah. The exam in the central region. It's very exciting for us, actually, like hosting something.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And I think it's also the first time that the exam will be able to be taken on other, I think it's like, now I think it's like hosted on the web, the exam, as opposed to those specific desktop computers that were, I believe, at DP downtown. I don't know, I've never been in that room or anything, but I think it was pretty cumbersome and the test wasn't portable essentially. Now it is.
Yeah, I know Chris has been working hard at that, and yeah, it's a nice big conference room in Worcester, so they will have everybody spread out, and there are
Yep.
enough computer computer connections,
Yep.
so that would be fun. It would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, if you get your temperature taken 3 times and you fail, then you're booted. So if you know anyone who's taking it, make sure that they are, I would, if it were me, I would pre-temp myself before I get out of my car in Worcester.
So like 3 times at the front door. It's not like they do it first at the front door, one halfway through the test.
Right. Yeah. If you don't pass the first time, then I think you have to go like sit in your car for 10 minutes and then they do it again. And
with the air conditioning running.
Right. If it's 3 times, then you're out.
Huh.
Yeah, the state has hired a contractor to do that.
Oh, I could have saved them money. I have this big box of digital thermometers sitting in my office that I had found going back from the mid, I think it was maybe early 2000s. DEP had a mercury initiative, which was keep mercury from rising or stop mercury from rising or something, some catchy tagline. And we were doing exchanges, mercury thermometers to these digital thermometers. Unfortunately, I think most of the batteries are dead on them, but.
Well, that'd be perfect, especially if you have a temperature and you don't want to be discovered.
0, you're in. You're dead. That's fine. That's not contagious. Okay, and any other questions or things you want to talk about? We can close the official part of the meeting.